Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Game Junk Podcast, episode 209, recording on Monday, October 7th, 2024. My name is Frank.
My name is Sean.
And my name is Andrew.
And this week we'll be catching up on a bunch of stuff we played, including Silent Hill 2 Remake Early Access, some more Zelda and the Echoes of Wisdom. Maybe we'll get into some more criticisms of that game. Who knows? And some other things we've played. So it'll be a possibly short show. I doubt it. We'll see how it goes. How are you guys doing this week?
Pretty good.
I got a tiny amount of gaming in. Got to touch Astro Bot a bit more. And another game called Nobody Wants to Die, which is a fairly new release as well. So I'll talk about those. But actually, I was hoping to get a little more gaming in, but did not. But, you know, that is my life these days, unfortunately.
Well, I've been gaming hard, real hard, and we'll get into it. But
before we get into it, I am loving your Costco repping that you're doing right now with your Costco sweater.
Yeah, beautiful. You got it. I love it.
Beautiful. When do you start getting when do you get the ad rev for Game Junk here? Your Costco payola?
Never. I wish. It's just a lifestyle. It's not really.
Frank's waiting until he can really launch his career as an influencer, and then he's going to clean up.
Apparently, there are a lot of Costco influencers now, so it's probably getting to the point where I got to bow out and pick something else to own. Because everyone likes Costco now. I thought I was the only one that liked Costco. Now everyone does.
What are you talking about? If they're throwing around money, you can take advantage. Grab some of that cash.
I gotta zig when they zag. I gotta find something else.
Fair enough.
But let's get into gaming hard. And I'll start it off. Yesterday, the new Silent Hill 2 had early access. I'm like, do I want to pay for early access? Sean and I did a little games night Saturday, and I'm like, are you going to do this, Sean? He's like, no, I'll wait.
It's 2 days early access too. Like if it's a week, that's a little more.
Yeah, but it was only like $10 or $12 more to get the scoop on Silent Hill 2.
Come on, Sean, who's a real gamer? Real gamers would
answer
pay.
To that question.
And like, am I ready to play Silent Hill 2 yet? And then I tried setting up Duck Station earlier in the week, which is a PlayStation emulator, to play Silent Hill 1, which I had never played.
Very surprised you would go the emulation route. I mean, you usually are very against emulation, anything that's legally nebulous.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. And I did try to see if you could buy it on PS3 and Vita, still the classics, but apparently you need an American account, which is still kind of hacky. So I just decided to go the emulation route, and let's try to beat Silent Hill 1. Let's see what happens. And yesterday I started it on Duck Station, found a great video that outlines how to set it up, optimize it, great resolution. And I plowed through that thing, beat it in a day. It's been a long time since I've beaten a game almost in one sitting in an entire day. I did break it up into 2 sessions, but I just murdered Silent Hill 1. I did it all. Impressive. I've never played this game. And I was kind of surprised. Well, first, the Duck Station emulator is really good. Like, it upscaled everything. It looked pretty good for a PS1 game. But my overall experience, have you guys played Silent Hill 1? Did you guys?
I think just briefly, very briefly.
Okay. Because I remember people enjoying it back in the day. It seems to come up on a lot of best of PS1 lists. And I was really shocked when I saw it came out in 1999. Like, it was a late entry into the PS1 catalog. I'm not sure when the Japanese release date was, if there was a big discrepancy for localization. But, and I feel like on our Discord, especially, people really love Silent Hill more than Resident Evil. And it's like the survival horror game. And I would say I really liked it. I think I was missing part of it because I think a big part of the original was the rumble on the DualShock when enemies were near, and that kind of anticipation, which you get a bit of enemies when there's static or sounds on your radio, which is on you at all times. It creates this kind of tension. But I mean, I think the really unique thing about it is you just go into these alternate dimensions and alternate realities, and it's just kind of a mindfuck kind of game. It's definitely a game I'm surprised Sean hasn't played. But I mean, the big thing obviously is the fog, and using fog as a, you know, a technical workaround for pop in a fully 3D rendered environment where Resident Evil had pre-rendered backgrounds. It was like fully modeled and rendered, and it used the fog to hide pop in. And that is really effective. The fog does work, but it does control wise. It's still kind of tank controls, and it had its issues, but I thought the map was really good for an old game, like how it updated as I explored the city of Silent Hill. Like X's and things would get circled and really guide the experience. So I thought that it made it pretty playable, 25 years removed from that game. So I still do not see a case, considering Resident Evil 1 and 2 both came out before Silent Hill. I think they're just better games. I think the combat is better. There's more variety. I think they're scarier. Maybe not as psychologically intense, but I was very confused with what was going on in the game at times, and the boss fights in particular left a lot to be desired. And I still think the boss fights in Resident Evil 1 and 2 are pretty memorable and graphically impressive. So I'm glad to have scratched the classic off the list, and it definitely helped me appreciate the remake of Silent Hill 2 more, knowing what defined the franchise and how, like, to view this one through the lens of classic Silent Hill. And it actually, maybe I wouldn't even like Silent Hill 2 remake as much if I didn't play the first one. It kind of brought me back 25 years, and it was like playing the sequel with all the modern improvements of a game that I just kind of, choppily played through. I did need to guide it a few times. There are some puzzles in that game that are very perplexing. Like, I don't know how anyone ever figured them out. I definitely needed to look up a guide for the astrology puzzle. Seems to be one that people struggle with, and a couple other ones, but not too many. And the backtracking, in particular in the last area of the game, it takes away the map, which there's a lot of repetitive looking rooms and areas in these games. And then when you don't have a map, it becomes really hard to navigate. So I understand the reverence for the game, but I still think Resident Evil is superior from that era, albeit I might have a bit more nostalgia for that game than Silent Hill. But I went right from that. I woke up today and fired up Silent Hill 2 Remake. And I think, we've kind of been critical of the Bloober in the past. I wasn't crazy about the Medium and some of their other stuff, but I really enjoy playing older games these days, whether it's an HD remake or just the simplicity of old games. I long for to some degree, and playing a, mostly old school kind of game that's linear with modern graphics, I just enjoy a whole lot. And I think Team Bloober has nailed the look of the fog and the vibration and radio sounds when you're close to enemies. It's like they're using the dual sense to, like, the speaker it's really cool how the enemy proximity is echoed through the dual sense controller. And I normally don't like a slow pace in games, but it really works for this Silent Hill 2. And the sound design is great. And I know when we saw videos of this, it looked pretty choppy at times and like not that great, but I don't know what changed or if it's just different playing the game, but the environments look really good. I admit the character models are not the greatest compared to other stuff that's out these days, but the environments look really good. So I'm about 3 hours into it, and I think it's pretty enjoyable. It's a really good survival horror game, and I'm glad I picked it up. Sean, I think you would like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be picking it up this week, so we can talk about it more next week for sure. I mean, I'm curious what the combat's like. You kind of mentioned that in your mind, Resident Evil has the better combat. I think Silent Hill, the reason people like it and the thing that makes it stand out was more about the atmosphere and the story and the town as opposed to the combat.
But I do find the stories kind of similar. Like it's not like it's you know next level of storytelling compared to Resident Evil. There's kind of just weird fantasy horror stuff. I guess this one's Silent Hill's a little more Lovecraftian, but they don't feel like huge departures storytelling wise, other than one deals more with dimension, like different dimensions and hallucinations, which Resident Evil doesn't really have.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jacob's Ladder is like a big influence on the series
I think
too.
so. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is more about the psychological stuff as you mentioned. But yeah, I don't know. The combat seemed like maybe an area that maybe they could improve on and modernize a bit. Like definitely the tank controls for me. Anytime you try to go back to these older games, it's just like, ugh, I can't do this. So that's one of the.
It wasn't too bad. I thought it was going to be harder to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The environments are not that complicated, and you're kind of going mostly down grids and hallways. So the tank controls were fine, and aiming at enemies, it kind of auto aims, where Resident Evil, you would have to kind of aim up or down, which
right. Yeah.
it's harder to play old Resident Evils. This one just kind of does it for you. So I think it's worth a poke. Now, I've never played Silent Hill 2, the original, and I think I read they've kind of added some features and like extended the game a little bit in terms of length. I'm not sure exactly what, but I mean, I'm 2 hours in and all I've used for combat is a stick with nails on it. So they're really like letting the combat breathe, and I'm about to get the gun, and I feel like I need to get something different soon because the combat's a little repetitive, but still kind of satisfying, bashing in like mutated freak skulls in with a wooden stick is pretty fun.
Speaking of bashing mutated guys in with a whatever you said. Oh, my brain's not working. Did anyone play Dead Rising? The Dead Rising remake?
No, not yet.
No.
Okay.
I think I'm waiting for that to be on sale.
I'm interested to see how that one aged and how that remake did, because I really liked the original just for the sheer like amount of characters they had on screen and just the vibe of that mall. And it would be interesting to revisit that game, I think, just for the nostalgia.
I've been wanting to a lot. It's a game I associate with getting into and working in the games industry. I remember it was pretty close to starting at SK, and everyone was playing it at work, and it was like the game du jour of that fall.
Well, and I don't think anyone had put that many enemies on screen at the same time. Like not even, Grand Theft Autos couldn't do that at that time. That was like their thing. So
you got to collect that PP. Wasn't that the experience?
Yeah. Photo points, I think. Wasn't it photo points?
Full PP. But I'm really enjoying Silent Hill 2. Gonna try to beat it by next week. I don't know like if I'll platinum it. I think there's a bunch of endings. I think that's something else it's known for. It's multiple endings, but Resident Evil had that to some degree, I think, as well. So like the menu screen in Silent Hill 1, your status looks a lot like your status in Resident Evil. Like the color system and the ammo is very similar. But in Silent Hill 2, my only real major criticism so far is when you're low on health, it puts this really prominent red, like post-process, like frame around the whole screen. And I'm low on health all the time. So when I'm playing the game, I've got like a red frame around it 70% of the time. I don't know if that was in the original, but it's getting a little obnoxious.
Yeah, that could be annoying.
It's prominent. Like it's not like a subtle damage indicator like a lot of first person shooters or other games. It's major. And then eventually a little health like plus icon shows up in the bottom right corner too. So it's right in your face, which makes me think it's part of the original game. Like it seems weird that they would make that choice if it wasn't in the original Silent Hill 2, but I'm not sure. And Sean and I will weigh in next week if he can pull himself away from Zelda to play.
We'll see.
Silent
Hopefully
Hill
it'll be
2.
done, but yeah.
So yeah, enjoying the Silent Hill series for the first time as a newcomer.
Nice. I mean, it is weird that they didn't do Silent Hill 1 first, but I mean, I guess I see that 2 is, the classic that everyone says is the best one, and I guess they're supposedly more standalone stories, right? Like you don't have to.
It's basically takes place in the same town, and it's different characters. I don't see hardly any continuity between the two so far, other than the town of Silent Hill.
Right.
But a lot of similarities to Alan Wake 2 as well. I didn't realize how much that was kind of borrowing from Silent Hill.
Could be bad for us.
I'm already enjoying Silent Hill 2 way more than Alan Wake. Like the map is more accurate. Knowing what you can interact with is obvious. And I think if Bloober's going to get credit for anything, I think they've really captured the essence of Silent Hill with the fog and the use of sound. And I think they've really, if you're going to make a Spider-Man game, you got to get swinging right. They've gotten the fog and radio right so far in this remake.
I didn't realize that Silent Hill was so much after Resident Evil. In my mind, I thought they came maybe a year apart or something, like Konami was chasing Resident Evil and they kind of like, got that game out. But, 3 years, that's a pretty long time. Or maybe 2.5, depending on when the release dates were. But like,
well, Silent Hill came out the same year as Resident Evil 3, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But like, I think Resident Evil 3 was a little later.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even like visually, there was a lot of better looking 3D PlayStation games at the time. Like even with the limited environment and that's what the fog is for, it still does not look that good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. The fog could have a lot of transparency, which could cause problems. So it could be like a double-edged sword there.
Yeah.
I was just looking up the Clock Tower series, which I know was kind of around that time too. It looks like that one started in 95. But is that one?
Silent Hill 1 features a clock tower and as the central piece of a chapter of the game.
Be interesting to go back and like review the history of, these survival horror games. Cause I think they probably started with Alone in the Dark, I would think, which was like a PC game originally, like way back in the day.
Oh, there is a Clock Tower Rewind supposed to come out this year, but
1992 for the original Alone in the Dark, I think. That's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
So like 4 years before Resident Evil.
Yeah. I
don't know if there's something before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking up survival horror and I'm not like...
Sweet Home is the one that Resident Evil was inspired by. I think that one... that was 89
heard of that
for NES.
But yeah, I think it was only released in Japan. So maybe that one's kind of like the granddaddy, but
yeah, I don't know. I feel like survival horror needs to be in 3D to really capture that moment. But maybe not.
I've never heard of that Sweet Home game and didn't know it was an influence. So I am curious to try Dino Crisis when it shows up on PlayStation Classics because I never tried that game and I always wanted to. So
I think that's another game I played a little bit of, and I think the controls were a little difficult to get used to.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It could be rough. But okay, that's it for me for Silent Hill so far. You guys can, whoever wants to go next.
Huck, I want to hear about Nobody Wants to Die.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, so this game is, definitely up my alley. It's a first person detective game sort of idea. Very noir cyberpunk setting. I mean, the key art is like basically Blade Runner-esque to the T. The whole like world you're in could be basically ripped out of Blade Runner, except instead of like futuristic flying cars, they have like flying cars that looked like they were from like the 1930s. The interiors, anyways. And then like I just finished the first area, which is kind of like the first quarter of the game or so. And the apartment building you go back to is like almost identical to the apartment building in Blade Runner where he meets the toy guy, the toy maker. I can't remember what his name is. Sebastian. Like, except it's not as gritty and dark, but like the layout feels the exact same. Very towery, elevators open, just very similar. You can tell like tons and tons of inspiration from Blade Runner. And also like very Orwellian. The whole like story line involves them finding some sort of scientific breakthrough to allow people to live forever, essentially. And dying is like this unique thing. So if a person dies, normally you could just like quote unquote dies, you could transfer your consciousness into a new body and then live in that body. But sometimes people actually are permanently killed, and that's like a big thing. And like that's what you're kind of investigating, these sort of things. So the premise is very interesting, and I'm compelled to keep going. And actually the pace has been good so far as to, how many clues I'm finding. There's like junk around the environments, but it's not excessive. And it all kind of like adds to the environmental storytelling of the game so far. So I'm not just like, Skyrim picking up tons of shit all over the place that is meaningless.
Where does this fall on a line between like walking sim and immersive sim kind of thing? Like, do you shoot anything? Is it all just kind of...
I haven't got any shooting yet. I do have a gun in my car, so I'm not sure if I'll ever use it. And I haven't really looked up any videos about it or anything. I was just like recommended by someone at work, so I picked it up because it was right up my alley. But it has a very like the main mechanic in the first area is essentially like a Batman Arkham style crime scene rewind, go forward situation, except it's there's like an added mechanic where you could kind of like analyze the environment as you rewind. You can kind of stop at certain points and find clues in the environment as they were at that time. And it's not like Arkham where it's like a reconstruction of what he thinks happened. It's actually like seems to be creating some sort of like time portal. So when you leave the apartment for the first time, you can choose to leave the apartment as like the way you found it, or like at the beginning before. Like, it's very strange. You have like control of time almost a little bit. It's a strange mechanic. Don't really know how it works exactly, but it kind of adds to the intrigue of the world and everything. So the mechanics are a little clunky though at times. Like you're kind of like adjusting this timeline and then trying to find a thing in the environment. It seems like sometimes it doesn't quite know to display the icon. I found myself occasionally wandering around and then only to come back and find it appear right where I was the first time, kind of thing. So like little tiny like clunky things, but there's like little tools and stuff like a UV light and an X-ray vision and kind of like stuff you'd find in probably pretty typical detective games. But I would say on that scale you're talking about right now, it appears to be closer to the walking sim aspect, but you are doing things and making decisions with your like dialogue and stuff that will influence the story, which I guess walking sims could do, but usually don't. Usually you're just kind of like along for the ride kind of thing. So no big puzzles yet that I've come across in terms of finding big things, but yeah, it seems like a short game. I think it was only like 4 hours on how long to beat. So I think that's going to be a great length for this style of game too. I don't think you'd want to go super long with a game like this. So I'm looking forward to diving back in, playing some more of it.
Nice. Yeah, I've had my eye on it. Definitely interested in it. I still gotta like that Shadows of Doubt game.
Yeah, I want to
That
try that one too.
it was in early access last year, and I like played like 15 minutes of it, and I was like, okay, I'll wait a bit. And now it's officially out, and
Yeah,
I still gotta give that a try too. So
yeah, it's on my wish list still. I don't think I pulled the trigger on it yet. No, I haven't. Yeah, so I'm just kind of waiting for a big sale probably to hit and pick that one up. That one did feel a little intimidating to me because it was like so open.
yeah,
Whereas this one is very like, here's basically the story and everything's kind of pre-scripted for you. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm definitely interested in it. It's very intriguing for sure.
Nobody Wants to Die is on sale. On PlayStation, it's 25% off. It's
Perfect.
pretty cheap. It's only $18 in Canada. Sale ends on Thursday, so might have to pick
Pick
it
it
up.
up. Mm-hmm.
hmm.
All right, Sean, what have you been playing, bud?
Well, I hate to do this. We got to dive back into Zelda Echoes of Wisdom because I've been
Let's
playing it
do
a
it.
lot. I'm like pretty close to the end now. And, you know, I know the first question Frank wants to know is, does it get better? And I mean, it's a hard question for me to answer. I've been enjoying it pretty much the whole time. But I will say, Frank, based on what you played so far, I think you got to give it a little more time. And I do think the more echoes you get, there's more variety in puzzles and things you can do in the world. And I have seen some people saying like, "Oh, well, I just used the same three things over and over again," and that's kind of I think what you said last week. But I mean, maybe that's possible. I haven't. That hasn't been my experience. Like, definitely the beds use a lot. There are some variations on that you get later in the game, so it's not always a bed, um, but like in terms of like enemies and combat and stuff, like I find myself using a lot of different things and trying different combinations. Maybe it's just like if you're not into that and you have one go-to thing that generally works, you just keep doing that. But
I'm not
yeah,
opposed to that. I just find going down the list is the annoying part to find the thing I want.
yeah, I mean the list is getting pretty big for me at this point, but
Yeah.
like it's more just like okay, you have in your head things you've picked up along the way. So you're like, okay, I'm fighting this flying ice enemy. What would be good for that? Or like I'm trying to reach this spot that's, you know, above some water and the water's uh freezing, so I can't, you know, like rocks sink to the bottom. So what else can I do? And you know, I don't know. There's just the dungeon design I think is pretty solid. I've had a lot of fun with like trying to figure out different puzzles. I will say a lot of the sort of like out of the way treasure chests and stuff. I think you had this criticism about uh what was the last Zelda game? Tears of the Kingdom. I think you had the same kind of criticism about that as well, but you go out of your way to find these optional treasure chests and then you just get like
Oh yeah.
ingredients and stuff. And it's like, oh, cool.
I got some more grapes for smoothies. Yippee. I haven't even got to the smoothies yet. Like, Sean's clearly enjoying Zelda, but he is part of an epidemic, ZDS, Zelda Derangement Syndrome, and Sean's got it bad. We were at games night. I was kind of tearing Zelda apart again, and he was visible. He was shaking. He was so angry. He was losing his mind. He was trembling. He was so fraught with anger, just pointing out valid criticisms of the game. He almost like passed out. He was so angry with me. So
I thought
gotta
I
take
countered.
everything he's saying with a grain of salt, people.
I thought I countered your argument pretty well, which is, you know, the Triforce Heroes game did not get great reviews. From my recollection, I haven't double checked what it is on Metacritic, but people
Yeah, my
don't.
argument was the reviewers also suffer from ZDS, and I mean that's a thing. Even
Hey,
people in the comments, they don't like when you go after Zelda. And sorry, Huck, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Huck
Go
had
ahead.
some shorts prepared, and he didn't post because he didn't want to lean too much into Zelda negativity, and he was
That's right.
afraid. He was afraid that the mob was going to come after him. Why are people so scared of Zelda? Why is this the one game you're not allowed to criticize? It's nuts.
I think it's not so much about criticizing Zelda. It's more maybe you need to ask yourself a question. If you're the only one who finds problems with these games, maybe you're the one with Zelda derangement syndrome. Maybe everybody else is perfectly healthy.
Let's not single out Frank. I'm the guy who doesn't like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom either. So I can say he's not alone.
I'm just going to go through my top 3 Zelda derangement proofs. Number 1, maybe it's only 3, but number 1 for sure is the release of Skyward Sword. It got 10s from IGN, and it was, the motion controls were almost unplayable on the Wii. It was a very frustrating game to play, and that was my first when I finally clued in. Like, okay, something's going on here.
I'm with you on that one, because I remember Skyward Sword had like a 3-hour tutorial thing that took forever to get through, and that game and Twilight Princess kind of when I started I started to lose interest in Zelda for a while. Like I never finished. I went back to the Skyward Sword remaster or whatever and played a lot more of it, but I still haven't finished either.
Yeah, I even played through it without motion controls, and I still like classic Zelda. But that was the first thing. The second one, they're both kind of related to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild was like, everyone would say it was the best game ever. It got 10s everywhere, yet everyone, like half of the people that played it did not finish it. And I'm like, well, how is everyone saying this is the greatest game if no one's I admit, I finally, quote unquote, got it and enjoyed it and played a lot of Breath of the Wild, but it is not without its own annoyances. And then Tears of the Kingdom, this would be the third for me, clearly a worse game than Breath of the Wild. I mean, the fusion ability got very tedious and basically just using the same things at the ends of arrows all the time. It had a lot of promise, but didn't really sell itself. And, you know, it was full of flaws, and yet people seem to think it's better than Breath of the Wild, which I just don't get. And I mean, there's more. Just even Ocarina of Time, I think, is a bit overrated, but I'm not going to go there. That's a bridge too far. We will invite the mob if I go down that road. But although I was thinking playing Silent Hill, that Ocarina of Time was a very good looking game when it came out. Like it's got a similar visual, like the same era of polygon models, and it still holds up over time, where Silent Hill does not at all. So I still have a lot of reverence for Ocarina of Time, but this Echoes of Wisdom is just next level. It's pretty boring.
Well, I mean, I'm liking it. It's, not game of the year for me, but it's probably going to be on my top 10 list, and I'm definitely going to finish it.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. If this was like a new franchise, if it wasn't Zelda and it was a game just called some random name with a new protagonist, you would not finish this game.
I disagree. Like, this game is up my alley. Like,
you would have stopped after an hour and a half.
You know what it reminds me of? And this is a game that only I ever seem to bring up, so I don't think it's necessarily it's something that other people are going to relate to, but Scribblenauts. It reminds me a lot of that game, but done well, where it's like you can kind of pull any object out of the world and use it to solve puzzles, and there's different ways of doing it, and it actually works. I think I would like it if it wasn't Zelda.
And I don't want to retread the conversation from last week, but I will say in Scribblenauts, you only solve the problem once. You have a scenario, you come up with an inventive solution. You don't kind of redoing it to traverse the world. You just move to the next puzzle and come up with a new creative solution.
Well, you got to play a little more. I mean, it's not like you're doing the exact same stuff over and over again, in my opinion. But
so I can't remember where this question came up, but I tried to find it in the Discord. I couldn't find it. But the idea of like, did I even play enough to criticize this game? Like, how much is enough to understand?
I think that was Jay.
Yeah, it might be. A lot of people might have said it, but I feel like I've experienced within 2 hours of playing a game and doing a whole dungeon. I feel like I understand the game loop. I understand all of the mechanics except for smoothies. Like it's not, it's not like the game drastically changes in gameplay. I can imagine, and I bet with pretty close accuracy, how this game, I could probably guess what happens over the next 5 dungeons.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. You've got the core mechanics there, but it's just like I said, the more stuff you have to work with, the more fun it gets, and like you do get more. You get to play as Link longer and longer as you play through the game and power up your energy meter or whatever. So, I think some of that stuff might help with some of your complaints, but
as you keep playing, you get closer and closer to playing good Zelda, which is an indictment of the game, in my opinion. And the other, it would be different to me if using the things you spawn was fun, right? Like if it was a fluid motion of spawning the bed and then you engage in that mechanic in a way that it feels good to use it. It's really not. It's just,
it feels good to me, Frank. I don't know what to say. Like some of the enemies,
for example, the spider enemy was the last thing I really captured the echo of. Okay, so you can use it to climb up the rope, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing unique about that. It's the same as climbing a ladder. It's just a way of climbing a ladder is not inherently fun. It would be different if there was some kind of like engagement mechanic other than pushing up on the D-pad, like other games. Even Astro. Those certain bug enemies, you hit them once, you spin on them, then you jump on them. You get this responsive feedback that like, oh, I can use this enemy to propel myself further in the air. You engage with mechanics. All of these mechanics in Echoes of Wisdom are passive. They add levels of indirection. It is not fun to play.
But it's about figuring out where to place the spider. When do you need the spider? Where is that going to help you? Like that's what's fun about it, not
wherever
the
you need
climbing of the spider.
I can tell you the answer already. If I need a ladder, I place a spider. It's not rocket science.
Not always. If there's no ceiling, then that won't work, Frank. You got to find something
I guess
else.
I got to go to the trampoline or another enemy later that I can bounce off of.
I must say this does remind me of like Spelunky with the rope, climbing rope, and it's different as Spelunky because it is a limited resource, whereas here you could potentially try again, and then it becomes just like, okay, I'm just doing it wrong a whole bunch of times potentially until I get it right. Whereas like Spelunky, you're usually using it to get to a spot you want to use. I feel like it's more accurate at times in Spelunky. I feel like when I'm throwing that thing, I almost, for the most part, get in the right spot. But I don't know. I do want to go back to this game. I didn't get to play it anymore this week, and I don't know. I'm like falling. I don't think I'm in ZDS yet, for sure, because I don't like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild that much. So I know I'm not really there. But
you got to be specific. Is it Sean ZDS or Frank ZDS? Which version of Zelda? Like
I'm going by the Frank definition of ZDS.
Okay. Because he's saying I have it, which I kind of understand. I do. It's
reverse CDS. Yeah. Reverse CDS. So yeah, I want to like play it a little more and come to a more nuanced conclusion. But I definitely I can see both sides of the argument for sure. I think it comes down to, are you looking at this as an action game or a puzzle game? Is like the real with this game in particular, and it might even for the other games, like for Breath of the Wild and stuff. Are you looking at it as just like an action game with like where you want to level up and stuff, or are you looking at it as like a pure exploration game and searching around? And I think it depends on your viewpoint of it. I know, Frank, you love the action, so you're always looking at the action.
I agree with Sean. It's fun when you figure out something for the first time. It's not fun to solve that puzzle again and again and again, which is what the game boils down to. And that is my fundamental criticism of Echoes of Wisdom. And Sean is shaking his head in agreement because he knows I'm right.
No, I don't think that's the case. But again, you don't know until you play a little bit more.
Okay,
give it a half hour. Give it a half hour and see.
I thought I was going to be able to this week, but it didn't pan out. So I'll play it some more. Okay. I promise. I make a solemn vow. I'm not saying it's before next week, but I will play it more.
And try those smoothies. They are amazing.
Not a smoothie guy. All right. Is it my turn?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I did try another new release from last week. A game that I think was in the top 5 most anticipated or favorite things from summer game season. and it was a game called Kill Knight. I can't remember what showcase it was in, but it was like this top-down kind of frantic action game. And it came out this week, and I gave it a little bit of a poke, and I don't know. It got really. There's only 4 Metacritic reviews, but they're really positive. This game kind of reminds me of it's like a top-down version of Hyper Demon. Do you remember that game Hyper Demon? That's like a very hard shooter.
Like a boomer shooter kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit. You're kind of in this psychedelic area, and it was by the same developer as Devil Daggers, which is similar, that I didn't play. And it's kind of like this run where you're trying to get a super high score, and it's got like really intricate combat mechanics that so specific I won't even get into details here. But I generally was having fun with the frantic action, but it's just so hard. There's like these challenges. I've played probably for 2 or 3 hours. I've probably done 50 runs, and sometimes my run ends in 10 seconds. The longest run I've ever had is 2.5 minutes.
10 seconds?
Oh yeah, it can end quick if you're like make a stupid
short.
mistake. It's really hard, and I don't see any progression. Like, I'm not getting better. I don't know what it is. I'm like making the most marginal improvements where, something like Hades, I sucked, but I would always get a little further. And this game, I'm just like, I don't think I'm ever going to get better at this game. And I might give it a day off or two and go back again. That's what I did today. And I want to like it. It feels like a game that the developers are good at, and I don't think many other people are going to be good at. And I'm sure there's going to be a very small audience that it clicks for, and they're amazing at it and they love it. But I think they're kind of limiting their audience with their progressions and challenges. Even if they were designing like more approachable challenges, like I started the game with 5 like major things to do, and they're tracked on the screen, like get a certain kill count, do a certain move so many times. I've played for 5 hours and I haven't done any of it. I haven't even come close to doing one of these things yet. And it's like, why not dole these out a bit more, or let the player think they're getting better by, having a carrot they can actually almost grasp, where these are like so far out of my reach. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not getting better at this game. So well, I'm curious to see once more reviewers weigh in, because I'm not necessarily getting the praise. I think there are some ways the design could be improved for like casual players, but it doesn't look as good as I remember it looking. It's still not like an interesting indie game aesthetic, but it's cheap. It's not that expensive. That's why I picked it up. So if you like super intense action games, you should definitely check it out.
That sounds frustratingly hard.
It's really.
I feel like I tried the demo and it didn't seem like crazy hard, but like I didn't play that much, but like I don't know what, like I'm trying to even remember what. Like I just remember liking the visuals. I think that's all I really remember about it.
I've played similar stuff. What was the Housemarque game? Next Machina, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like that game is hard, but it's like got nice progression, and they're definitely borrowing some ideas from Returnal, which I like, but I think Returnal is a better kind of game. This is almost like Cyber Demon meets Returnal in a top-down game. Yeah, that's
Metacritic is looking pretty strong though.
Yeah, but there's only 4 things, I think, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, that's it.
So, okay, I jumped into Astro Bot, and I know we're probably going to do a review, yes, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but it is really fun. It's a really fun game. It's basically, in my opinion, it's kind of like Super Mario World remade in Astro Bot form. A lot of similarities to Super Mario World, and there's a lot of good things about this game where I like how they, show you what's in the level right up front, and you can kind of track your progress, and all the Astro Bot guys you need to find, you kind of can find in order. So if you miss one, you kind of have an idea of where it is. And my only criticism right now, which is not really a big spoiler, but I feel like some of the mechanics, they don't give you a good tutorialization on, or they wait a long time to show you the tutorial on it. There was like a couple mechanics where I like had no idea what to do, and it turns out I had to use the like tilt the controller thing, and I was like pressing every button, like why isn't this working? And that was my only like real criticism so far. But the platforming's strong, the little like extra stuff they throw in there, like finding little puzzle pieces and having them unlock stuff, and then having that sort of like hub world, which is also like a little mini world, is all really, really fun to work on, or to play through and kind of explore. I think I did find a bug though, where I was in the hub world and I went into one of those like offshoot areas that they have, and I had done most of the stuff, but one I did not do. Like, the little like guys you have to unlock with bringing guys to.
Yeah.
And so the little like blue kind of like marker is still there, but when I walk up to it, nothing happens. No one comes up. And so I don't know if I missed that.
There's some that you have to go back to that area. Like you need more than you have at that given amount of time, but it usually says that you.
Yeah. The only thing I was thinking of is maybe I have to like, sometimes you have to like beat a couple enemies before it shows up all the way kind of thing. I thought it was maybe something like that, but like I could see the little like puzzle piece off in the distance that it's obviously for, but I haven't been able to figure out how that actually triggers anymore. So I don't know if it's broken or I just haven't actually figured out the right thing, but I haven't been like maxing out all of the levels, but the challenge levels are they're like the perfect amount of challenge I find right now. It's like, you can, some of them you can do in the first one, maybe 2 to 3 times. Others, takes like 10 or 15, but I always feel like I'm progressing just that little extra enough to keep going and want to finish it. There was one I got a little frustrated with, but I was mostly just making stupid mistakes and rushing. But yeah, I've been really really enjoying the game, and I like it. There's little like secret things hidden in each galaxy. So I'm in the third of 5 galaxies, I guess. So probably a little under halfway, but really, really enjoying the game so far.
Nice. That's a library?
That's the library one. You gotta be a master library put on holder guy to get Astro Bot this early. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I mean, so how long do you have it for then?
I have to return it on the 10th. I think they gave me like 2 weeks or 10 days, which was actually quite surprising. So yeah, I have it till the 10th, but here you have like a 30-day grace period now. Like with COVID, they gave you like a 30-day grace period with no penalties or fees. So I might be holding on to a little extra longer, just use that grace period for all it's worth. Put my tax money to work. People can wait.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they have like 20 copies anyways.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so a couple things I've dabbled in. I haven't put a lot of time in, but I'll mention the Crimson Diamond. Have we talked about this? I feel like it came up on the show, or maybe it was in some showcase, but this is a new adventure game, point and click adventure game, but it's one with a text parser, which is pretty rare these days. And it's got kind of EGA style graphics, so it really takes you back to a certain era. And
yeah, crazy.
I think developed by a solo developer from Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. And it's kind of this Agatha Christie style mystery where I can't remember exactly, like you go to somewhere in Northern Ontario where they've discovered this diamond in the stomach of a fish. And and you're investigating that for a museum, but then there's all these people that are staying at the same inn as you that are all have different reasons for kind of wanting that diamond or whatever, and it goes from there. So I've only played through the first chapter. There haven't been really too many actual puzzles. It's mostly just talking to people, but I'm surprisingly kind of just liking typing stuff in. Like
This is so this is so nostalgic. I'm loving it. It like looks so like King's Quest 2, Police Quest 2 kind of era of game.
Yeah, like it's so that nostalgic balance of like you can just click around on stuff if you want to, but it's kind of like you can just type and the character will walk to whatever you're like. It's not like, some of those games it was like, oh, I'm too far away, you got to move me over to that thing first, and it's like, so this will do it for you. So it's kind of, you can just sit there and just type stuff in, and it's
so does it have a combo of like mouse clicks and typing? Like, do you have to, if you click on something, does it like do the look at automatically or do the pickup? So or like, how when they evolved, it became like you switch the icon you're using, look at, pick up, open kind of thing. Like, does it have a combo system or is it mostly typing?
It is a combo, but you can really only click for walking and looking. I don't think you can really click for interacting with. I think you have to do the typing for that stuff.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
this has not come up before. This looks really cool.
Yeah. It does look really cool.
Pretty neat. Toronto developer.
Yep.
Julia Minamata.
Yep, that's right.
This is pretty cool. Nice. I have to check this one out, even though this is not my nostalgic fix like it is for you. Okay, I finished Plucky Squire. Did anyone else finish it?
Not yet.
Okay. I enjoyed it. Kind of feel the same way I did when we talked about it last. Just the mini games stand out. Like the Punch Out and rhythm games and stuff like that. Did anyone make it to the like magic card that I was talking about last time, where you get the bow and arrow?
No, I don't think so.
I watched just this morning my son play that. I think it's when you are shooting at those bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay. So I saw him do it this morning.
Bow and arrow from like a Magic the Gathering like parody card, and the art style is different. It's pretty rad. But I feel like it's about a 7 for me. I feel like 7 is accurate for that game. And then I'll just say I completed Horizon Zero Dawn, which I said it, but I did all the Frozen Wilds. So my first time doing the Frozen Wilds, and I enjoyed my return to Zero Dawn. I was going to start Forbidden West, but now I'm debating if I have to play Zero Dawn again in remastered form before I move on to Forbidden West.
You obviously do. I mean, you have to. It is your style.
I was really close to just starting Forbidden West the other day. So, but I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like horror-y this October, like playing Silent Hill. I never beat RE4 remaster. I might get into some horror type stuff. Dead Space. I never completed.
That reminds me. I want to go back and play the Plague Tale Requiem, the newest one, which I never finished.
I have one more thing, but you guys can go if
I'm done.
Okay, I got a couple more things. I'll mention a game called Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip, which was like something I've just been kind of like, whenever I need a palate cleanser in between games or something, I just throw this on, and it's like kind of like from the era of like Crazy Taxi, Simpsons Hit and Run type thing, where you're like this weird little cartoon guy, and from what I can remember, all you're really trying to do is you have this car and you're just trying to get parts to power up the car, but it's more of like a collect-a-thon type game. I feel like I had heard it compared to Tinykin for some reason. It's not really that, like it's not Pikmin or anything like that, but I think it's just the collecting element of it. And it's just kind of got like a zany sense of humor, and it's sort of this little town that you just drive around and do odd jobs for people. Not amazing, but kind of fun and funny at times. So I was kind of enjoying that.
Sounds pretty good. It looks pretty good. I'm intrigued. This is where my reverting back to console games is starting to hurt a little bit. All
Oh,
these
yeah.
unique games Sean is playing that are really only on Steam.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll just mention I didn't complete it, but I played some of the Metaphor ReFantazio demo. And it's the new like Atlas from the developer, one of the developers on the Persona series, new RPG comes out this Friday. I was really enjoying the demo. The storytelling. I've always wanted to play Persona, but I'm just not that into the idea of the school, and that world is not that interesting to me. I'm sure I could get into it based on what people say, but also there's 5 of them, and it's like, where am I entering the Persona world? What do I do? Where this one, it's like taking a lot of the same mechanics and systems and applying it to more of a fantasy RPG setting, which I'm more invested in and am more interested in. And I think I might pop on this on Friday. Yeah, there's just too many games, and I want to finish Silent Hill 2, but I did enjoy what I played in this demo, and the reviews are quite good. So I think IGN gave it a 9 today, and just letting people know there is a demo for Metaphor ReFantazio on every platform, and I believe your progress carries forward when you start the game, kind of like what Final Fantasy 16 did. It had a very long demo, so you might want to check it out if you're curious.
Mm-hmm. I am kind of curious, but not sure if I'll get into that anytime soon. Okay, 2 quick things. A game called One Button Bosses. Button spelled BTN for some reason. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a game where you press one button to fight these bosses. You're kind of like circling around them, and every time you hit the button, you change directions. I assume there's more mechanics they build on top of that, but I've really just scratched the surface of it. But I just like the idea, like something about very simple games that boil down to like one mechanic that you can keep building on. I always like that idea. So I checked this out. I think it's only on Steam as well, although it probably would work good on mobile as well. And then
It's really good.
yeah, and then speaking of stuff that works good on mobile, Belatro is finally out on mobile. So it's on Apple Arcade, and you can also buy it just on its own. And I currently have Apple Arcade, so I've been dabbling in that a little bit, getting into it a bit more. I mean, it's weird because I feel like I just don't let myself get hooked by these games. Like I'll play for a bit and I'll enjoy it, but like I can just put it down anytime and I'm like, okay, good, I'm done. Like I never get that one more run feel for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Oh, but there was one night I just kept playing Belatro until like 4 a.m. I'm like, one more run. I don't. This Belatro does it for me. I just have to keep playing.
Like it's fun when I'm playing it. I guess I just never really seem to have a sense of like what my bigger objective is. Like I'll play a run and I'll be like, cool, but like I'm not aiming to like beat the game or like collect all the things. Like I'm just like, I'll fire it up, play it, and I'm done. Like I don't know, maybe I'm just weird that way, but if you like it,
Like typing in Scribble Knots, you're not into Belatro. That's the way it goes. It's okay,
Exactly.
dude. You like solving the same puzzle 20 times. It's okay.
that's my thing. What can I say? But if you do like Belatro, it could be dangerous to have it on mobile. Just gonna warn you that right there. But
And if you haven't checked out Belatro yet, you must. It's in consideration for my game of the year. I'd say there's 4 games right now that are neck and neck. It's tough.
Strong year. Strong year.
And remember, everyone thought this was going to be the shittiest year for games ever. And it came out hot with Prince of Persia and Belatro and Helldivers. It's a good year.
Rebirth right in there too.
I have to go back to that. Oh my God. There's just too much stuff.
There's
Okay.
too much stuff.
I think that's everything. So next week, Probably some more thoughts on the Silent Hill remake if Sean's going to check that out. Maybe we'll get some news here and there. Maybe Metaphor ReFantazio. Until then, you can watch us at youtube.com/Game Junk. You can subscribe and like and leave some comments. We check those out, even if they're hurtful and negative. Feel free to leave them. And Discord links are there as well. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening or watching. Bye-bye.